I did some time in a Georgia state prison this week. Well, I guess I should say I spent some time there as I was able to walk out after a few hours, whereas most of the people I was in contact with have no choice but to stay. Some of them for many years to come, some perhaps for their entire lives. Um, why do I go there? What's the point? Well, I learn something each time, and I'm always seeking that opportunity, and this time, this visit was no difference. Now, I'm not excusing the kind of actions or choices or behaviors, or let's call them what they are, crimes that these men committed. And for the most part, they're not there to talk about their past, and really it's not up to me to ask questions, although I do, in many cases, have a pretty good idea of what sent them up. What I'm looking for is an opportunity to work through the ministry I'm involved with to help these men know that God remains with them, even though most of society has written them off. Here's a couple of observations from the last visit, though, that I think have relevance to all of us. People have a capacity to judge each other based on rather superficial observations. That happens inside prison too, just as it happens outside. And I am talking about stereotypes. I'm talking about the horrible obsession that we've fallen into on racial differences. That turns out to be a big deal in prisons too. There are gang activities and so on, although I didn't see any evidence of that. But again, the people I'm visiting are on their best behavior when outsiders come in because they appreciate the change in routine that we offer them. Beyond that, some at least, perhaps many, ideally all who are present, truly are convicted by God's presence in their lives in a good way. The opportunity for them to see value in their lives in spite of the crimes they've committed and the price they have to pay to society, which is ongoing. Sometimes, again, with no light at the end of the tunnel. So, how do you provide purpose in the life of somebody in a situation like that who really may be stuck behind bars indefinitely? Well, one way is through an expression of faith to note that through Christ in our tradition, all people who want repentance will achieve it. That may be easier said than done for many of these people because they realize that they're still stuck in prison because society is not about to let them off that easily. But it is possible to have purpose nonetheless. We talked a little bit about the ability to get beyond the confines of prison within your own head. What's going on in your mind? What are you doing to make a difference in the lives of others while you're there? Can you achieve a leadership role within the prison to help those who are struggling? And believe me, many are. I met one man in particular who is apparently the victim of one of the most cruelest affronts that one human can present to another, and that is to be shunned. This person just feels that he doesn't fit in. He doesn't get fall easily into groups of people who may pass the time of day playing cards or some other forms of recreation. He's not interested in talking about a lot of the things they're talking about, which sadly often relate to guns and other means of creating violence. He's into things that don't interest me, and the guns don't really either, frankly. But neither does Dungeons and Dragons, what happens to be this particular person's interest. So he reads a lot, but he's alone a lot. He told me he eats alone. He doesn't have friends, and he's very depressed as a result of this. Um, because of his skin color, he feels that he is near not identified as black or white sometimes, and really that becomes a barrier because race matters even in prison. It shouldn't in our societies, but sadly it does. Um, all I could ask him to do is to be patient, to find that one person who will become a friend, but not to expect it to happen overnight, and to pray on it, which I hope he does as well. People are also bored there. There's not enough for them to do, at least they don't think so. And it does take some creativity to develop an enthusiasm for those activities that are permissible within a prison setting. Think of how many times we too might express boredom, especially if we're no longer working. We may feel that there's nothing for us to do, and yet there is so many opportunities, especially for those of us, of course, who are not confined, but even for those who are. There are chances for us to explore, or to use the minds we have to develop interests and to pursue them, to develop skills in certain areas that we have always been interested in, perhaps, but don't have. Some of these people do that very well, but there are those who fall into this funk of feeling sorry for themselves, perhaps, being depressed, feeling there's no hope for their lives, and really having a very low opinion of themselves on top of all of that. Developing a higher opinion of yourself is hard when you've been told repeatedly that you're no good, that you're lesser. Certainly in a prison, people hear a lot of that, and there's a reason they're in there. They actually did commit crimes that merit the kind of punishment the state is dishing out to them. And for the most part, they realize that. Yet, having them identify as men who can still have a source of self-respect and pride is more of a challenge. Are any of us struggling with those same doubts about self-worth? Perhaps we are, and if we are outside of prison, we have many easy opportunities to overcome it, but it all starts within ourselves, as it does for those who are still incarcerated. Start by loving your God, by loving others, and by loving yourself. Everything else can flow from that, but truly believe, regardless of what you've done, regardless of what others have said about you, you are a person of inestimable worth, incalculable value. And if you start with that and are able to finally accept it, then progress is possible in all the other areas.